vitamin D plays an important role in the innate immunity. That's the immunity that is present at birth. And vitamin D also plays a very important role in the acquired immunity, which is built up during lifetime. And for instance, vitamin D supports the immune cells to react to an infection, and therefore vitamin D is essential in the immunity. You're right, there's increasing attention for vitamin D lately. And the reason for that is actually you see there's lots of new emerging evidence for the link between vitamin D and COVID-19. There's a numbers of studies showing, for instance, there's a link between low vitamin D status in the blood and the likelihood of being diagnosed with COVID-19. And for instance, there was a large cohort study in Europe showing that low vitamin D levels were correlated with higher chance of having COVID-19. And even more recently, there was a very big study in the US among almost 200,000 patients that showed that low vitamin D in blood was linked to increased COVID-19 diagnosis. The challenges actually with vitamin D are that you need to obtain it from either your diet or from the sun. But the challenge is that there's few food sources that contain sufficient vitamin D. Fish has quite some vitamin D, but otherwise there's few good sources of food for vitamin D. The problem with sun is that we don't get sufficiently outside anymore, and if we go outside we protect ourselves, so we put on sunscreen or wear clothes, and now during COVID you also see that people stay more at home. So actually that's also what the science shows, that there's actually a global problem with vitamin D among the people, and vitamin D levels generally are too low. Well, you could, for instance, think of fortifying foods. Manufacturers could fortify, for instance, milk or bread with vitamin D. That's a good source of vitamin D. Another good source of vitamin D are vitamin D supplements, if you take them on a daily basis. And it's also maybe very interesting to mention that a large part of the consumers is now becoming increasingly aware of the benefits of vitamin D. DSM has a variety of vitamin D forms for different food types, beverages, but also for vitamin D supplements, for instance. In that respect, it's probably interesting to mention that DSM is developing a special vitamin D form, which is called calcifidiol. This form is very efficient in raising vitamin D levels in blood, and that could be of interest, for instance, during winter times when people have difficulties of having sufficient vitamin D levels. And also very interesting is that surveys show that consumers increasingly perceive vitamin D as beneficial, especially also for immunity.